Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Too Ambitious. I'm Trish Lindo. I am so happy that everyone is here today and joining me for another amazing episode of this show. I want to thank everyone who's been supporting me for, can you believe it, the last 6 months of this show. I'm super excited to be here. And today I have an extraordinary guest. But first, if you are joining this show for the first time, this is a show that celebrates Black women and women of color founders who are game changers, who are changing the game. They're innovative, they're resilient, they're just extraordinary women. And I love to amplify their voice. So if you are a fan of all of that, give me some love, give me some heart emojis. I want to see the screen light up. Also, tell me where you're joining from. Let's see the comments light up as well. So without further ado, let me introduce my next guest. So today we have courage coach Keonna Knight is here. She is the CEO founder of Heal with Keonna. She teaches Black women and change makers how to heal and build a bold and balanced lives. In other words, guys, she's here to help us say goodbye to burnout and hello to putting ourselves first. Now, yes to all of that, of course. Keonna is absolutely charming. I'm a huge fan of her from the minute I met her. She has built such a successful business that is doing what she loves, is helping people to thrive. And who isn't like a fan of that, right? So give her a warm welcome. Say hi to the great Keonna Knight. Hello.
Yes. Okay. Intro. Okay. Intro.
Yes. I love it. Welcome to Too Ambitious.
I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I love it. I love that you're here. I'm loving the vibes too. The clouds in the back, your
Yes.
amazing style,
Thank you.
So
Yes.
thank you so much for being here. And today's conversation, we're gonna just kind of talk a little about healing and how you got into it. And so,
Yeah.
we know that there are lots of people who are joining us today who have a lot of questions and everything like that about some of the work that you're doing. So,
Yeah.
let's dive in. So tell me a little bit about, how you got started, because I
Mhm.
read that you were an elementary school teacher before you started your journey into entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
So tell me, how does someone like you go from teaching to becoming
Mhm.
the CEO founder of Heal with Keonna?
Yes. So, yes, I was an elementary school teacher, and I always share with people I thought I was going to be a teacher until I was like 80 years old. And, all the little kids were going to be coming to visit me, and they were going to be grown with their kids. And I thought that was going to be my life because
Right.
I love teaching. And
Yes.
I was in East Oakland, Bay Area, and I was
Hey.
like, okay, come on, vibes.
Hey.
And I was just so passionate about helping my students that I found myself completely burnt out. That I was like, I'm trying to
Mm.
make everything engaging. And I'm like, I have 30 students, and I have some students who only speak Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish. And I have a lot of students with IEPs and no personnel. And I'm like, I see so many needs here, and I don't
Right.
have the tools to source my students, but also I don't have the tools to take care of myself. And when I was
Right.
so burnt out, I was looking around like, so where are the resources for those of us who are pouring into our community? Like, who pours into
Absolutely.
us? And when I
Yeah.
realized there were no resources, I was like, me as a teacher, I'm like, okay, there's a need. That's the need I need to meet first. Is like,
Right.
I need to take care of myself, not only so I can show up
Absolutely.
for my students, but for myself. And so I got my yoga teacher certification and did this whole
Okay.
like, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on my wellness. And
Mhm.
in doing that, I gained a lot of tools for my well being. And I
Nice.
was like, the teacher in me goes, well, I'm gaining tools that's helping me in my classroom. Let me share them with other people. And so it went
Absolutely.
from sharing workshops with my colleagues to then sharing workshops at other schools to teaching yoga to my students and other students. And I was like,
Right.
oh, I like doing this better than being in
Yeah.
the classroom. And so that's when my journey shifted from me being a teacher to me actually teaching outside of the classroom around healing, around well-being, and how do we take care of ourselves while we're taking care of our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that journey and that story. How long, can you give me like a time frame for that?
Yeah.
Was that like a 3-year time frame, 5 years?
Yes, 3-year time frame. So it was my first year. This was 2019. So this was my first year of teaching. And then I left and I taught here in Richmond, Virginia during the pandemic.
Wow.
And I retired from teaching, was it 2021? And so at that point, I had my business, but I was still kind of like, oh, I have my business, but I also have my job. And then I realized like my calling is to do work around us healing, around us taking care of ourselves, around us overcoming burnout.
Right.
And it was March of 2023 when I went completely full time, like
Okay.
nothing else, just focusing on this business and focusing on supporting other people.
Yeah, and I mean that's what, little over a year full time, right? And when you talk about like healing and dealing with things that are so sensitive like burnout, how did you know that this was the right path? Like who did someone influence you, or did you just kind of have that core feeling like this is the path? Like how did you know that? What does that feeling feel like?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing I knew what was not it. So I first allowed myself to try what I thought was a thing. And I
Right.
felt in my own body exhaustion, lack of energy, a feeling of like, this is not right. We all have had that feeling. And then when I started teaching the workshops, when I started doing one-on-one coaching, I felt lightness. I felt like I was just being myself in these spaces. I would get chills. I would feel myself like, oh, I want to do that more. And I knew that like, oh, this is my jam, when it's like I get paid to do a thing that I would do for free.
Right.
And so when I found myself energized, like I'm genuinely like, I have to tell myself, all right, Keonna, we need to chill because I want to do work. Like I am committed to my mission. I want to help people. And so when that helping people doesn't feel like a chore, but it's something that is genuinely exciting and energizing. And in
Yes.
my body, there's a feeling of like, it's
Yeah.
yummy to me. It's delicious. Like I want more of it.
Yeah.
For me, that let me know, oh, this is what I'm called to do. And my relationship with God anchors me in this journey because I feel that like head nod of like, yep, keep going.
Yes.
And that ease and the lightness and peace that's in it. I don't feel like I'm forcing anything. I don't feel like I'm having to pull myself to do
Right.
work that I'm
Right.
called to do. It feels more easeful. And I think that's the measurement for me, the level of ease and authenticity I'm able to do this
Mm.
work at.
Yes, you are walking in your purpose. That's what that is, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about, the actual work that you do with Heal with Keonna. That is such an important role that you're doing. And I want to thank you, first of all, because not only are you putting good vibes out there, but you are helping people in a very difficult time in their lives who are experiencing burnout. Tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing and how you help people get back on track.
Yeah. I love this question. So for me, my work specifically centers Black women and change makers. And so I like to start with saying like, I help the helper. I help the person that
Mm.
everyone else is going to for answers. The person who is on it, they're helping people. They're the one that you're like, oh, they got it all together.
Right.
I'm the space that they get to go to and say, child, I don't have it all together. I'm
Yes.
struggling. I'm overwhelmed. I have my spouse asking me for this, my children asking me for this, my team asking me for this, and I'm overwhelmed. And I really want to support all these people, but I don't know how to. And then on top of
Right.
that, I don't know how to put myself on my plate. I'm the last on my list. And so my work is holding space for folks. The individual one-on-one coaching is like, okay, I'm here for you. I'm
Right.
your cheerleader. I'm your accountability partner. I have a degree in therapy. And so I'm also the person that helps you to recognize, okay, right now you're overworking yourself. And I'm noticing that it's not necessarily just because people are putting things on your plate, but you're putting extra things on your plate. That inner
Mm.
overachiever is trying
Yep.
to prove themselves that they're enough. The perfectionist in you, that inner voice that tells you you're not doing enough, is pushing you and making you work even harder than anyone else is requiring of you. And so doing that healing work, but also taking action. And so the teacher in me goes, oh, we're going to build a game plan. Okay.
Yes.
I want to see your calendar. I want to see your to-do list. I want to see what's on your plate. And now I want us to design, like redesign and organize your life so that there's room for you. And also there's room for you to do what you're called to do.
Right.
It's not just a selfish of like, oh, me first. No, me first, because when I take care of me,
Right.
I'm full and I'm overflowing and I'm
Exactly.
able to give into all these spaces and walk boldly in my calling. And so that's
Yeah.
the one-on-one piece. And then the thing that I really love is like supporting organizations and companies and treating their employees like real people.
Oof. Yes. And that is so needed today in our corporate structures, right? So I appreciate that you are adding that light there, because a lot of it sometimes feels so superficial, where they're not actually doing the work to help, their team members and employees. So that is so important, the work that you're doing. So when you go into an organization, what type of stuff are you doing? Is it like breath work and, giving them a good talking to like you are now? I feel like you're talking to me right now. So, mhm.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to name that. One thing that is often missing is support for leadership and then also
Mm,
support for the team. So sometimes you have a wellness workshop and it's like, we want our team members to overcome burnout. So here's some tools or here's some resources. But leadership is still not getting the support that they need to make sure that they have the tools to actually operate, to communicate effectively, to be strong leaders, to be intentional in how they're taking care of themselves. You have people who are telling other people, take care of yourself, make sure you're doing this, are you using your PTO? And they're not doing those things.
right.
And so my work is like, I'm very much a systems level support. Is okay, I want to come in and make sure that your team has the tools to take care of themselves and truly create a culture of wellness. Like truly, that we're taking care of each other and we're centering our well-being in this space while also naming that productivity is necessary. And so how do we do good work versus hard work? That's a big thing for me.
Mm, I
Many of
love
us
that.
are working too hard, and we don't think there's a other way. And so my whole thing is supporting that organization and getting clear on what the other way is. What are your
Yes.
values as a team? What are we
Mhm.
striving toward together? And then how do we make sure that every person on this team as well? How do we check in with each other? What does that look like on a systems level? And then how do we build genuine relationships with each other? So
Yeah.
it's not just like, oh yeah, I go to work with these people, but like, no, these are my people. We're all moving toward a mission together and we take care of each other. This is a community. And so doing that work, sharing tools, practical, tangible tools to make more
Mhm.
people feel more accessible. And then also supporting leadership, and so
Yeah.
providing one-on-one coaching to leaders, providing support for them and being like, hey, what are y'all struggling with? I
Yeah.
know you're holding a lot. And so what are you struggling with and what do you need help with?
Yeah.
And really providing that like one-on-one support and consulting to help them be able to communicate effectively and be able to make moves that are not just like these one-off sort of things. It's like, okay, we check that off the list, but like shifting the culture.
Yes.
And that looks like also accountability. So like 6 months beyond, hey, how's it going at Too
Right.
Ambitious?
Checking in,
How are
following
y'all?
up. Exactly.
Yes. How are y'all taking
Love
care?
that.
Having those one-on-one check-ins with team members as well. How are you continuing to take care of yourself? So it's really
Yeah.
a wraparound support to make sure that folks are being treated well on all levels and they're treating themselves well.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you do the follow-ups, because many times you do this work, and then you're just kind of feel like, okay, I did it. Now what? No one's checking
Hmm.
in, no one's following
Hmm.
up to make sure that the systems that were put in place are actually working, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I love that. One of the things I wanted to really kind of ask from you and kind of get a sense of is that, we've all heard burnout. We've all, and probably some of us if it have experienced it and didn't even know. What are some of the signs of burnout? So if someone's watching and they're like, this is all great what Keonna is saying, but how do I know? What when someone comes to you when you're like, this is it, let me tell you what's going on here. What are some of the signs we should look for?
Yeah. So I'll share what my personal experience is and name some of the common things that I've noticed. So the first thing is that there are things that I want to do, things that I may even be equipped to do, but I have absolutely no energy to do it. Like
Mm.
I, it feels like a pull. So like when I was teaching, I felt anxious waking up. I love teaching, but I didn't love teaching. I'm like,
Ah,
I feel a disconnect between what I want to do and what I have the energy to do. Another thing is that there's a lot of stories internally where I'm feeling like no matter what I do, it's not enough.
right.
And I'm feeling a level of exhaustion on every level. My body's exhausted, my mind is exhausted, my heart is exhausted. So the compassion fatigue. And a good way to measure that is so often I hear people talk about like, I've been sleeping, but I'm still tired. you know?
Yes.
It's like no matter what I do, okay, maybe I went for that walk, but still internally I feel this deep depletion, a soul level depletion.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was really navigating. I feel like my cup is empty, but it also feels like nothing is filling it. It's almost like there's
Mm.
a hole at the bottom of the cup.
Right, right, right. Drinking water and just never, just still thirsty. You just
Yeah,
can never feel it. Yeah.
and that's it. It's that feeling of
Mhm.
still being thirsty. And it's also that feeling of like, I don't feel like I'm myself. Like the energy, the personality, the way that I typically show up is not how I'm showing up right now.
Right,
And I don't like myself right now. I don't like who I am because this is not me.
right.
And yet I still don't feel like I have the energy to kind of take care of myself or pour more in or take care of other people.
I think that, all of the things that you just described, I feel like most of us are probably like, yes, yes, yes,
Mhm.
and yes. We've all experienced that at some point, or maybe experiencing it right now. What should be the first thing that someone should do if they believe they're experiencing burnout, besides obviously coming to you? What should be the thing that they should do? Is it like meditation, or like what should they do first and
Yeah.
foremost?
So it's going to be something that can feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. Don't remember a time when
Yeah.
you weren't burnt out.
Yeah.
It's so often when we're burnt out, we actually feel like we need to do more. And so internally, rather than stopping, we actually are usually overworking and going above and beyond because we don't feel like we're doing enough or that we are enough. And
Right.
so what I recommend is actually being still. And what
Okay.
that looks like,
Yes. Tell
uh-huh.
me.
What that looks like is you have a full day. I have a full day. And so there are certain moments where we basically never turn our brains off. We're usually still working when we go to sleep. We wake up, we have an idea, we have things to do, we pick up our phone. But it's taking your phone, it's setting a timer for 10 minutes.
Mm.
And as I want you to lay down, I want you to sit down. I want you to not touch your phone. And I want you to be with what is.
Mm.
Because there's also a disconnection from what you need. There's a disconnection from how you feel because you're so exhausted.
Yeah.
And what happens in that stillness is people get clear on like, oh, actually, I think I might be running away from the fact that there's something that needs to be healed. And
Mhm.
so I'm also kind of overworking to mask that. Or
Right.
if you're spiritual, you're like, I'm actually overworking because God has called me to do one thing and I'm trying to run and do a different thing. Or
Yeah.
it's actually, I'm not happy at my job. I'm not happy in my relationship. This is not where I want to be. Giving yourself a moment to actually slow down so that you can tune into you because you actually have the answers around where you are, what's going on, what's hurting. But you're moving so fast that you're not giving yourself space to actually be with what is. And you're adding more things
Mm.
to your plate. And
Mm.
so if we could slow down, and that's what I would recommend any person listening to this, I want you to set a timer for 10 minutes and notice how hard it is.
Oh
Notice
my
how
God.
hard it is to just be still.
Yes.
In that stillness, you'll hear the stories. This is lazy. This is unproductive. Oh, wait, we got to do this thing. Giving yourself space to hear it, but still sit
Yes.
and be with the discomfort and be with what is actually real and what is inside what is showing up for you, checking in with what you
Mhm.
need, what you feel. And even if you just did that every day, even if you
Mhm.
did it every other day,
Right.
it's building more intimacy with yourself so that you have more clarity on what you need. And also, so then when you show up in other spaces and people ask you what you need, you can answer better. You
Right.
have a better understanding of what's going on inside of you.
Right.
And quite frankly, I ask a lot of people, what do you need? And they usually say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's because we're moving so fast and we're not often giving ourselves room to just be.
Right. And I think also too, a lot of that gets lost, like within like our culture,
Oh,
and how fast technology is moving, you feel like you have to keep up and you're always doing 50 million things and everything feels important in the moment, that you have to do it. But, very rarely do a lot of us kind of slow down to your point and kind of take stock of how we're feeling, in order to take care of ourselves.
yeah.
And so, when you're working with these women and change makers, um, when they come to you and they're like, hey, I need help, I need support, is burnout the biggest issue that you're seeing in your work for some of these leaders?
So burnout is just a result of what's happening internally and externally. So there's
Mm.
usually something internal and there's something external that's happening that they are feeling powerless about. And so, like, I had a client, I'm not going into too many details. We'll name this client Katrina. That's not their name. And, Katrina was really navigating, like, I'm feeling pulled in so many directions. And I feel like my limbs are being pulled apart.
Oh,
And I feel like I'm not doing enough in any of these spaces. And so I have no sense of being connected to myself or any of the people around me. Like, I feel like I'm just on autopilot going through the motions. And so I don't feel connected in my life at all. And
right,
that is a main thing that I hear from people is like, I'm not on my plate. I have no idea how to take care of myself. And yet still people are asking things of me. And so I have to keep going. I can't
right.
stop. I can't pause. And so what I hear is a lot of heartache and like a lot of disconnection from themselves, is like feeling like they're a robot or a machine, a part of some other system,
Right.
that they really have no control over their own life or their own time.
Mm.
And so a lot of the work that I'm doing with folks is like how they get their time back, navigating people pleasing, navigating the
Mm.
inner overachiever, navigating these inner voices where they have no grace for themselves, learning how to be compassionate again. Um, because there's a lot of pain, and oftentimes this work is inner child healing too.
Right.
There's a reason. There's a reason behind why we are the way we are.
Yeah.
And capitalism does not help. Racism does not help. Sexism does not help. All of
Yeah.
these additional layers and systemic inequities put more pressure on us to feel like we need
Absolutely.
to perform and succeed and not take care of ourselves or honor what we need.
Right. Because some of us forget that we're not machines, we are human beings and we have to take care of ourselves. What are some of those services that you provide, Keonna? Like, so if I come to you for help, how how does that process work? How do I work with you and what are some services that and tools that you can give to me to get started? And what's the process too for healing? How long
Yeah.
is it?
hmm So this is the teacher in me, the coach in me is I am big on short-term process, long-term accountability. And so I often say like the work is not like it's not hard work. It's a matter of just being clear, having the confidence, having the courage, and having a care team to move things forward. So the process, let's say Trish, you're like, child, I am burnt out. I am trying to navigate running a business, being a whole human, and I'm
Yes.
stressed and I need support and I need someone who is just focused on me and my well-being and giving me
Mhm.
the tools. And so I would
Yes.
say, lovely, Trish, you complete the coaching application and you share with me, like, what are your pain points? What are you struggling with?
Right.
I say, okay, beautiful. Let's schedule a call. During that call, I am really listening to you to hear what is hard for you right now. What is
Right.
that block in the way?
Yeah.
Oftentimes we're in our own way. So you might
Mm.
say, oh, Everybody is telling me to sit down, but I just am struggling to because I want to succeed. I'm ambitious. Like I have
Yeah,
goals and I want to get there. And
right.
like I can't lie. Maybe they're exhausting me, or maybe there's something I'm still healing and I'm navigating through that. I'm hearing you intently. And then all of my coaching is personalized. And so then what I'm going to do is create a whole curriculum based on what you're sharing with me to
Mhm.
support you in 4 ways. Number one, getting clarity. Who are you? What are you being called to do right now? What does Trish value? What are your core values? And at the center of your life, what is it that you need to
Yes,
feel genuinely well?
yes.
That's our foundation.
Yeah,
Because once we have clarity of those things, that's going to guide everything else we do.
right.
Now, the courage. What are you afraid of?
Yeah.
Because there's a reason why you're not taking action in those ways. Because there's something internal or external that's telling you you can't have that. Or you
Mm,
can't rest. You can't be ambitious and rest. You can't
right,
have
right.
goals and also take a vacation. You can't not be hard on yourself and still succeed. Okay, now we're going through the healing process of putting the fear in the back seat and building a relationship with courage and taking action. And so that's when we
Mm,
get clear on what do you need to say yes to and what do you need to say no to.
mm,
And now I'm holding your hand so that we can start saying yes. So literally, I'm on calls with clients like, I need to set boundaries with my husband. I'm like, all right, babe, let's do this. What
right.
boundaries do we need to set? All right, how do we set this? I'm role playing with my clients so that they feel more confident being
Mm,
able to take these steps. And
yeah,
I am like, okay, how did it go? So I'm like, really by your side
mhm,
because we're making these steps because they're needed. And so,
right.
like, hearing the testimonials where they're like, I'm able to have set boundaries with my husband. I'm able to now communicate boundaries with my child or inspire them to understand that they deserve well being. And so,
Mm,
it's giving you that space to practice. And
yes.
that's me sharing tools very specific to you, utilizing my background in therapy and just my personality, because this is also coming from my own healing journey. Like, this
Yeah,
is life. Rest is a part of how I move. And
right.
then the last piece is care. Is like, I'm going to
Mm,
help you build a care team that beyond working with me, who else is supporting you and making sure that you're well? Like, I
right.
have a therapist, I have a coach, I have a business mentor. Like, I have a tribe of sister friends who
Mm,
support me. I have business besties who are going to be those people who will make sure that you are taking care of yourself and holding you accountable.
yes.
And then
Yeah.
after that point, if you're like, Keonna, I want you to stay on my care team, then we have accountability calls where I'm continuing to, take an hour, whether it's once a month or bi-weekly, to say, all
Mhm.
right, Trish, how's those boundaries going? Are you
Right,
resting? You took that
right.
PTO? How's your business going? And I'm very hands-on. So like I'm in all your business. And so I'm gonna know all the things so I can help you with all the things so that you truly feel like supported and like you
Yeah,
have the tools to fully walk boldly in your calling
right.
because there's
You're
more.
Yeah, absolutely. Living life, not only in purpose, but in very full and bright way,
Yes. Mhm.
no dark clouds, you know.
That part.
Yeah. And I mean, you sound like, having like a healing best friend. You're like,
Mhm.
the person who is walking alongside you,
Mhm.
and making sure that you're staying on your path and you're doing all the things that a lot of us don't do to take care of ourselves.
Mhm.
So, the work that you're doing is super important. We got a question from Dan who says, how should I support my wife navigate burnout when society was built or expect women to work more, do more, suffer more? Side note, I do
Mhm.
not abide by traditional gender words, i.e. not a lazy husband. Okay, thanks for that, Dan. What do you think about that, Keonna?
Yeah, I love that question of like, how do I support someone else when navigating burnout?
Right.
Um, the first thing is always practicing embodying it because anyone close to you is also paying attention to how you move. And so you taking care of yourself may inspire them. But then
Mhm.
outside of that is oftentimes as women, we're having to identify our needs and then communicate our needs. And so how can you tune into her and rather than her having to tell you, already having those needs met and communicating to her the ways that you're trying to support her. So
Right.
maybe you notice that every day she comes home and she's exhausted and she's talking about, oh, like I just like, oh, my shoulders are super tense and I'm struggling. Maybe when she comes home, you're like, I already have the bath water run for you. Like, I'm finding those ways to meet needs before a person even has to communicate them, and
Right.
also listening attentively. So oftentimes when there's burnout, we don't feel seen because in the spaces where we're working or in our relationships, people are asking things of us and are not considering us. And so really taking time to listen attentively to her and tuning into what her needs are, but also
Mhm.
not going into fix it mode. Like, she doesn't need you to also fix all these situations, but maybe she needs you to hear her fully and to recognize that perhaps the space that she's in that's causing burnout, she may have to shift out of that. And so, how do you work as a team to potentially support that? Now, I don't know the situation in detail,
Right.
so I can't speak specifically to your situation, Dan. But if there is something that will support her in burnout from a larger scale, not just running a bath or a massage, but it's her job. And so maybe it's having a brave conversation of how do we work together to get you out of here? Or how do we work together to get that promotion? Or how do we work together to put you in an environment where you feel valued, where you're cared for, and where your well being is at the center? Because it sounds like, Dan, you're already supporting.
Right.
And so being able to have those conversations of like, what steps, what do we need to say yes to, and what do we need to say no to as a collective
Yeah.
so that you can be taken care of?
Yeah. I love your response to that, Dan. I really hope that helps. And definitely reach out to Keonna if you're looking to
Please.
get more resources and help as well. So thank you for your vulnerability there. So Keonna, tell me, this work that you're doing is not only healing and inspiring, but how has it impacted your life? This work that you're doing.
So the work that I do is not just for other people. Like, this is my life. This, like, what I share is what I practice. And so, like, right now I'm on my balcony. I'm hearing the water flowing from the pool. I have a flower in my ear. Where is it? From going for a walk. That, like, I was burnt out. I was burnt out. I was exhausted. I felt like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. And now I feel genuinely rested and cared for. And I'm able to set boundaries and say no with ease. That, like, this work has not only allowed me to transform or support other people in transforming their own lives, but it's been transformative for me. That, like, I get
Absolutely.
to do what I love and be myself for a living and really witness people transform their lives.
Yes.
And at the
Yes.
same time, every tool I share is a tool that I'm practicing that is allowing me to build a life that genuinely, like, I always ask myself, is your life bold and balanced right now? And I'm like, I am bold and
Mm.
balanced. I
Yes.
was talking about this. I feel
Yes.
genuinely bold and balanced. And I want more people to have access to that. And that's what I feel excited about. Is like when I hear people talk about burnout and exhaustion, I don't hear them with pity. I hear them with excitement because I know that there is more that's possible.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'm living proof. I'm living.
Yes. Yes. I love that you are not only walking in your purpose, but you are sharing it with the world and sharing your light. What is the best way to get in touch with you and work with you if someone chooses to?
Absolutely. So I highly recommend for folks to join me on LinkedIn. My name is Keonna Knight. Say hey. And I really love building real relationships with folks. So I love to schedule like virtual coffee chats. So if folks are interested, schedule a virtual coffee chat and just send me a message saying, hey, I watched this. I'm curious. I'm navigating this. And I want to hop on a call. Let's talk
Yes.
because I want to be a resource to you. And then what I would do is share the best resource, whether it's working with me or finding another resource. I genuinely want you to be well. And
Yes.
if you're like, I want to do that work and explore your page myself, you can go to www.healwithkeonna.com and that'll share, a bit of what I do. I'm working on my website to make some updates. But
It's beautiful.
it'll still clearly communicate what my offerings are. Um, and yes, I really want to invite folks to really take a moment to investigate what's on their plate right now. And so I wish I shared this earlier. Please draw a circle, and I want you to write everything that's on your plate right now, just so that you can be aware of what you're holding and carrying and doing.
Mm.
You'll be surprised that you're already doing so much, that
Yeah.
you're doing extraordinary, actually, because you're carrying and navigating a lot. And so if you're feeling burnt out, trust me, it makes sense.
Yes.
It makes
Yes.
sense. It may be time to take some of those things off of that plate.
Right.
And if you need help taking some of those things off of the plate, then you know where to find me.
We sure do. Thank you so much. I feel like, this was a very healing conversation, and I hope that, everyone watching felt that as well. Thank you so much, Keonna, for being here, for
Yeah.
being you, and for sharing your wisdom and basically giving us some tips on how to navigate burnout, how to take care of ourselves, and how to live a bold and balanced life. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I love that our virtual coffee chat turned into this.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I was so fulfilled by what you shared during our coffee chat that I knew other people needed to hear this. So I want to thank you. So we'll continue the conversation. I want to thank everyone for joining us today on Too Ambitious. Um, Join me next week. Why not? If you want to continue having these conversations with more incredible women like Keonna, join me next week for another episode of Too Ambitious. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and I will see you soon. Bye.
Peace.